If you could the staff report mentions that we're providing direction today. Can you let me know, is that just direction by consensus or do you need a vote?
I'm going to defer that to Sarah.
I guess I'll jump in and say, we will do whatever you do, however you tell us to do it. It will give us more certainty if there's a vote.
Okay. And can you say, just in plain language for the sake of having it in the record, what does a no vote mean and what does a yes vote mean?
A no vote would mean that you do not accept the recommendations of the staff report, which should be to adopt the design standards as recommended, which is a Cooper E80 loading for new infrastructure on the rail line, and to secondly, to evaluate the existing infrastructure for the current operational freight needs, as well as the assumed loading needs of the project. So in that scenario, we're proposing to accept or to adopt that standard, look at what the capacity of each bridge is, compare it against what we know and anticipate the demands being, and then design to that level for the existing infrastructure. So that's, we would carry on with less certainty, developing, and with no vote, developing different project concepts that, I don't know, I think I probably deferred Sarah on that.
So
but
can I jump in real quick? So with the no vote, it's the challenge is, so when we start thinking about these bridges and the design concept, unless we know how strong we're going to build the replacement bridge, it's difficult for us to be precise in the information that we present to you in the concept report. So that provides a less valuable information to you.
Thank you.
May I please add, Sarah Christensen of your staff? I would just add that when we develop projects, we want to nail down our design methodology early and have that clarity, because if we don't have that clarity, then it is possible that we have to go back and redo work, which we obviously want to avoid. That costs more money and time as well. It could delay the schedule. So we're trying to be as proactive as possible, bringing good information to the commission to make decisions on the project. And a no vote would just make our jobs a little bit more challenging as we move forward.
Appreciate the clarity. Thank you. Commissioner, questions on this end? Saying none? Yes, I hear you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that report. So I'm looking at this bridge, existing structures and draft project approach, and it seems pretty daunting. I mean, we have bridges that were built, I think, the earliest in 1904, many of them in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, 50s, antiquated. So it seems to me, if I'm a business person and business opportunity presents itself, let's just say in this particular case, a rail trail, right? If I'm a business person, have you ever heard of the concept of getting to know early, N-O, early? Business
Yes.
People want to know early whether or not all their efforts are going to be worthwhile, because getting to know saves a lot of money, time, effort, and so forth. So one of my big questions is, we're trying to make decisions here based on kind of a little bit of nebulous facts and projections and so forth. But if I just look at this one item, if I'm going to make some sort of decision today, even though it's a preliminary one, the whole concept of money comes into my, I guess, thought process. So give or take $10 million, how much do the projected renovations to, what was it, E80? What are we talking about? I mean, how much does that cost?
I think Sarah or Peter might be able to answer that.
Yeah, Peter, the bridge guy would.
We are, this is Sarah Christensen again. We are very early on in the development of this project, and we have heard loud and clear that the commission desires cost estimates, accurate ones, as accurate as we can be. And the recommendation that we've come up with is it balances many different factors, needs of the branch line, the future uses, and the fundability of this project. So this is an ambitious project for this county. It is going to be an expensive project. As you saw, most of the bridges are going to be replaced. We don't know how much each bridge is going to be. It could be, maybe 5 to 10 million for some of these smaller bridges. And it could be, depending on what type of bridge we end up with, it could be in the tens of millions for a single bridge. So
Single bridge.
correct. So we are dedicated to providing that information. About a year from now, we will have those cost estimates and we'll be able to provide more clarity to this commission and to the public.
Earlier, thank you for that, Sarah. So earlier, our executive director, and I forget what project you were talking about, but you mentioned the term project exceeds available funds. And for me, those words should be impressed in our brains a little bit because it's like a cautionary tale on so much of what's happening as far as transportation is concerned. And I don't think it gives anybody any pleasure to be kind of just eternally doubtful and skeptical about, quote, rail trail or whatever. But at some point, the whole concept of cost benefit comes into mind. The two supervisors can defend themselves very well, but on the, I guess, position and responsibilities of supervisors or all the people up here, we have a responsibility to kind of ferret out the things like, are there red flags? Does this deserve more scrutiny? Should we look at it a little bit more closely? Should we question some of the reports and just, what is going down and perceived as fact when it's just really, really soft facts? For example, if I look at the benefits, mentioned here in terms of, what this project does, sometimes, and I think I mentioned it when you were in Scotts Valley, having a quantitative analysis of if there is in fact lower VMT or GHG emissions reductions, how much? Okay, when you read any kind of book and there are, what an annotated bibliography is, where you can kind of go to the source of what you're saying and why it's true in a table that explains things. I think the RTC kind of deserves that a little bit instead of just throwing out, what the benefits of rail are and, fewer people are going to use the highway. Well, how many fewer? Okay. And is that really true? Okay. Or what have we seen in other jurisdictions? Smart trains, VMT, BART, for example. Do those people go by on their trains and all of a sudden see no traffic or very limited or fewer people using highways, or are they still congested? Okay, so I guess I want more facts and cost benefits and whatever. And I guess I just heard, we're a year out from knowing more in terms of what financially where we are, but we're going to make decisions today that we want to move forward. Okay, it's a little dubious for me.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add that in coming to you with any sort of estimate of future, it's necessary to make assumptions, and whether it's our revenue projections in Measure D or anything, those are all built on assumptions. And what we're asking you now is to approve one of the key assumptions. That doesn't mean that when we get the concept report, we're locked into building E80 bridges everywhere. But we need to make assumptions in order to bring you that type of information that you're asking. But I do agree for the importance of having that information.
Thank you. And then just a quick reminder, we're at Commissioner questions right now, and we will take additional comments and discussion after public comment. Commissioner Rodkin.
At 2 meetings ago, this commission decided by a unanimous vote, I believe it was unanimous, to take about a year to do a serious assessment of the alignment of this system, its actual real costs, what assumptions we were going to make, and so forth. And so, in both in good humor and respect, I would question whether you don't, Randy, enjoy challenging this, and whether at every meeting we're going to hear a challenge before we get to the end of what we've already agreed to. Might take a year to find out.
I wouldn't make that assumption. I mean, that's it would be faulty.
So that, I mean, the issue, it takes time to develop this information, as we've been told by our staff, and to figure out, and so I think both Bruce and Manu at the last supervisors meeting pointed out that, you know, it's sometime in December, or we don't know exactly when we'll be done, but somewhere in that range, we'll be getting information that really is necessary to make some hard decisions. I think I respect that. I think there's room for skepticism, and people will, you know, see what the facts bring us and where we're going to go with it. The specific question that I have is, I understand that if you're going to replace a bridge, it doesn't make much sense to save 10 or 15%, as we're being 5 to 10%, to build it at less than freight standard. For one thing, it would potentially, I wouldn't say it would, but potentially would throw into challenge our right of way based on the freight easements that we've got and so forth, if you actually build a brand new bridge and it doesn't carry freight. But my question is, for bridges, and if you're going to do major rehab of a bridge, again, you don't want to do it and then have to tear it, come back and save 10% by having to rebuild the bridge. But some of these bridges may only require minor transformation of some kind. We don't yet know. We're not done yet with that part of the study. Is it possible that even if we adopt this general standard of E80, that it makes sense to take bridges that are not going to take a lot of work to change? If we simply in effect left them alone and plan at some point in the future, they're going to have to be replaced, or because no bridge lasts forever. But I guess I'm trying to get a sense of, like, if we wrote today to approve this standard of E80 and to have it built to a freight standard so we can make further calculations and come up with numbers about what it's all going to cost, whether there might be room for value engineering in some of these tight budget situations to not build, basically bring a bridge that we're not messing with very much up to a freight standard if it meets passenger rail service standards. Are there bridges in that situation? Is that potentially a source of value engineering savings? What's your sense of that in terms of where we're going? That's my question. I don't know who.
I could take a shot at that one if that's okay. So E80 is a standard freight load. The current operator locomotives that are in use are less than the standard E80, right? So we're just trying to plan for the future and keep our options open. And if we were to adopt a lower standard, we are not recommending that for new bridges because of what you said. It doesn't really give us a huge benefit, but we would have a load restriction on the line, which is okay because our branch line has always traditionally had a load restriction because of all the timber trestles have never been intended to meet E80 standard. So we want to keep our options open and set ourselves up for success and go through the process. And there will be definitely opportunities for value engineering in the future. I would caution, though, that if we know a bridge needs to be replaced or a major repair needs to happen, we have some concern about opening a new transit facility for operation, building up the ridership, and then having to close it down to do a major repair or replacement. So, no,
I was clear in my question. I don't think if you're going to replace a bridge or do major rehab, it's not worth it for 5 or 10%. But I was just questioning whether there might be some savings potential on some of these. Not every one of these bridges needs major overhaul. I mean, some of them probably carry a freight load right now.
Some,
That's my question.
a few. The other picture, part of the puzzle is funding and grants, and the fact that this county is going to need to acquire all the grants in order to construct this project. We're going to need to be very successful in securing state and federal funding, and that's to build the capital project, right? There's less grants out there to do rehab of bridges and repairs, and so we want to get it all done up front. That's going to reduce our operation and maintenance costs and make this line feasible to operate and maintain at the operational level that we are anticipating. So
Thank you.
hopefully that provides clarity.
Commissioner Schifrin.
Yes, thanks for the staff report. Has there been ongoing communication or consultation with Roaring Camp or other private railroad operators as part of this process?
Yes, we have been in consultation with Roaring Camp. Yeah.
Good, because I think one of the, there's the Tesla version and there's the, Honda version. And, the Honda version might require rehab more frequently. That happens on railroad lines. But if that becomes a difference between something that's feasible and something that isn't feasible because of some huge cost difference, I think the commission should know that. So is the commission going to get some alternatives that look at Tesla versus Honda and, what can be done at different cost, at different cost levels with different levels of risk? I think I think the commission would benefit from having that kind of analysis. Is that the intention?
The intention of the staff and team is not to gold plate this project or to build a Tesla type of project, as you explained. We want something practical, economical, and we're just getting started. We intend to bring a lot more information to the commission, and again, there will be opportunities for value engineering in the future. We need to adopt this methodology that is going to help us give clarity to our team, our consultant team, our staff, so that we can bring adequate information to the commission. There will be flexibility. We always want to keep our options open to adapt and shift if there's opportunities that come up in the future. So I would just say we're needing this now to bring the information that the commission desires, and that we will, we're going to figure this out as we go with the commission. So
Thank you. I think I'll add one thing to that response. So the recommendation number 3 on the staff report for looking at the existing bridges and evaluating those bridges based on their existing capacity and the anticipated load requirements of both the freight and the passenger rail services will be happening in the coming months. One of the big items that we will come back to the commission for is a discussion on the vehicle types. Vehicle types will have a large impact on the bridge evaluation and the capacity. There's, as was mentioned by Peter Graff in the presentation, traditional passenger rail service uses those front locomotives for transporting the passenger cars. They're similar to freight. The freight locomotives. Other vehicle types exist with different pros and cons, and some of those are lower loads on those vehicles. So those will play into the cost that we're going to be coming back to the commission with when the vehicle types are discussed.
Additional commissioner questions? Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Commissioner Brown. I applaud the specificity that you brought to the committee today. I think it's going to be essential going forward. The old saying, without data, you're just another guy with an opinion. And we've had a lot of those. In the scope, following up on what you just said, will the scope of this project include defining what other at the current status of the bridges, what other modalities would be appropriate, including bikes and pedestrian?
We will definitely be coming back with, as I mentioned, the different vehicle types for the passenger rail service over the bridges. The use of the bridges for not passenger rail service, no, we won't be coming back with this project for that discussion. We will, as a project team, and be looking at how we use the bridges, the new and the retrofitted bridges, whether that those provide both passenger rail service and trail on one bridge or separate them off. We're going to look at that from a, cost benefit perspective, but not using the existing bridges for different modalities specifically.
So I don't want to reopen a wound, but it's my understanding that the discussion of a trail adjacent to or not adjacent to the rail remains open. So why would we not appraise the current bridges for their suitability for pedestrian and bicycle traffic?
It's a rail study.
It's a rail study, but it would also address the question of whether or not a new bridge construction could work in parallel to the existing bridge or require an entirely new bridge. So I think it's a fair question.
I think I'm seeing what you're saying, which is our project is looking at putting passenger rail service on the branch line. We have
Rail trail, I believe, is the project as it's labeled.
correct. Thank you for the correction. Yes. So we're looking at bringing passenger rail service from Pajaro to Santa Cruz, as well as completing 12 new miles of coastal rail trail. Those would be segments 13 to 20 and phase 2 of segment 11. Bringing passenger rail service to that area will require either rehab of the existing bridges or new bridges. So we can, as a project team, look for opportunities to where they exist to put new bridges in places that would allow the retaining of the existing bridges for the coastal rail trail. Due to the constraints of the rail corridor, that would probably require acquiring right away. But that is something that we can look at, and if it's the specific direction of the commission, like we can make that a more imperative.
So I'm going to perseverate. I would hate for us to go through this exercise. And should the conclusion we don't need a train or we can't afford a train, and it's not a foregone conclusion, but I'd hate to get there and then hit the reset button and ask you to reassess these bridges for alternate uses.
Mm-hmm.
So I would propose it would make sense to ask both questions simultaneously.
Forgive me for interrupting, but I'm assuming if a bridge can handle E80 loads of a train, it can handle some bikes and pedestrians as well. So is that not included essentially within
Well,
what we're looking at?
If the bridge can't handle E80, what can it handle? And could it handle
Right.
bikes and pedestrians?
Now we fully understand the question. So you are correct, Chair Brown, in that locomotive loads are of the heaviest loads beyond, roadway and any other kind of mode. We, as part of this process, we are focusing on the project concept for the zero emission passenger rail. Now, keeping our options open, we're doing assessments. We assess our bridges often. And it would, I suppose, be a subsequent study that would be needed to look at what bridges. We would go through a similar analysis. However, it would be for pedestrians and bikes loading versus train loading. And then we could, if we go down that path, then we're gonna we would bring that information to the commission, but it is not included in the scope of work for HDR's contract. And we're trying to focus and keep moving forward with this rail concept report. And then this commission will have an opportunity to make a decision in 2025. And then there will be subsequent steps, obviously.
So I'll be dogmatic one more time. If we're looking at building de novo expensive train bridges as outlined in this proposal with accommodation for an adjacent trail, would it not make sense to simultaneously look at the existing bridges and say, hey, we can have two, a new one for the train that meets E80 and the existing one for bikes and passengers. So what I'm asking you to do is have a little foresight and assess these bridges with the thought in mind, there may be more than one bridge at a certain spot, and each bridge may have a separate mandate.
Could I respond to that? Because what's really being asked for here is that we spend more money that we don't have. We're going to be lucky to do to get the money to complete the rail study. To start adding things on is going to cost more money, take more time, and just make it more difficult to reach a meaningful conclusion. I think it's important to move forward with this. And I don't see
trail
any
being dropped. Is trail now, is it just rail only?
Can I bring this back to staff? Yes, for responses. Thank you.
I didn't interrupt you, so I didn't appreciate being interrupted.
Mitch, do you want me to take this?
I just wanted a clarification of the question because I think that might help us. Are you asking if we have a place where we have an existing bridge that we are not sure we have to replace now, that we look to see, is there some option to do both the rail and trail that might keep the existing bridge, for example, for like pedestrian, and then build a rail only bridge that would be somehow better than refurbishing the existing bridge or replacing the existing bridge with something that's going to do both? I mean, is that
So it's door number one. Should a bridge not be able to reasonably upgrade it to E80, and we are postulating a new train bridge will be built? Would it be better and cheaper to build a new bridge that was both, or better and cheaper to leave the existing bridge if it could handle pedestrian and build a new rail bridge?
Thank you. That would depend on a case by case basis. We are developing the alignments. The alignments are another factor that we need to consider, because if we need to straighten out some of these tighter curves, we need to shift the alignment over. Maybe we need to acquire right of way, hopefully not. But there is a possibility that a scenario may exist in the future that could look at, I guess, converting an existing railroad bridge to a trail bridge potentially, and then building the, rail bridge adjacent.
That is my question.
And then just to clarify, in order to do an analysis to look at a bridge for a trail to convert, I guess, a rail bridge to a trail bridge, similar to the study we did, I think in 2021 for the Capitola Trestle, it would be a separate analysis, and it's not included as part of this concept report process to the extent that that you're describing.